Let's start with the SEC, the top conference, the best conference in the country, no matter what anyone wants to say. So, the top of this is simple, right? So, if A&M and Texas both win this week,
yep.
A&M plays at Auburn. They are only a 2.5-point favorite. Texas is a 21-point favorite at home against Kentucky. It was funny,
yeah, people were talking about, just actual analysts, too, were talking about the Auburn game like it was a formality. And while, I mean, we're going to get into it, I do think Texas A&M is going to win the game only because Auburn's offense is so bad. That's the only reason. But they were like talking about this game like it was a formality. And even funny enough, Elko fucked up his press conference. Did you see that?
There's already so much talk about November 30th. It was announced as a night game today. How do you deal with that with your guys and saying, hey, we still have something ahead of us at Auburn, or is that even a big issue with your team?
I don't think it's an issue. I think when you're in the situation we're in, it's easy to focus on the task at hand. I think, those big games earlier in the year, maybe you look ahead. If we didn't have that stake, what's at stake? Maybe you would worry about it. I think our focus is single-handedly on Auburn right now and locked in on what we got to get done.
We're only thinking about Texas.
I mean Auburn.
Hey, I mean Auburn.
Auburn. He was trying to
But it's a bad spot for Texas A&M
horrible
because
spot.
Auburn, it's senior night, senior day. Obviously, they play Ole Miss, which is their Super Bowl next, but it's like, if they win 2 in a row, they're bowl eligible, which, I don't think they will. But it's a big game for them, and A&M is just all they're thinking about is Texas. Let me ask you this. If A&M, and we're going to go through the scenarios, but just this one, if A&M loses to Auburn but beats Texas, are they in or no?
No. So I'll get to that one in a second.
Yeah, we'll get into it in a second. I just didn't know.
Well, no, they're not. Well, there is a way, but it's
small
even,
percentage.
I won't even discuss how it happens.
Yeah,
so
it's so crazy.
So I will say, okay, so we'll go back real quick and we'll come back to all of this. I think A&M is going to lose to Auburn this week, by the way. Shocker.
They certainly
There's
could.
a reason that line, I'm not saying they're going to win, but there's a reason that line is 2.5 and not 3. If professional bettors liked A&M in that spot, that would be at 3 right now. Meaning there's not a lot of love for A&M.
No, I get that, but I would say
I
would say that Vegas and professional bettors have given Auburn way too much respect this year, and that showed. Look at the Vanderbilt game. How many points were they favored by in that game?
No, I completely agree. They've gotten too much credit.
It's a horrible spot for A&M. They could easily
What I'm saying
lose.
is professional bettors in this spot are not backing A&M.
No, but they were all over Auburn against Vanderbilt, too. That's my point. Yeah.
I agree, but that was weeks ago, and I do think Auburn has played a lot of games close that they lost. The game at home against Georgia was a 4-point game, and they got a goal line stand, and it went to review, and it's just they were in that game. Like
Auburn has a really good defense.
They're not horrific.
A really good defense.
And the games at night.
Offense sucks.
And the games at night at Jordan-Hare Stadium, like I said, it's senior night. So let's go back to SEC scenario. All right, so Texas and Texas A&M, they're atop the SEC standings right now. Okay, they're the only 2 teams in the SEC with 1 conference loss. If either team is assuming they both win, let's just say for scenario 1, Texas and Texas A&M both win this week. Okay, if that happens, the winner of A&M Texas is a de facto game to go to the SEC title game. So they would then play, more than likely, I would say 95%, the winner of Texas and Texas A&M would play Alabama in the SEC title game, assuming Alabama wins their last 2 games. They play Oklahoma on the road this week and then home against Auburn the final week. So if Alabama wins their 2 games, that's the simplest scenario, right? Like Alabama's going to be favored pretty sizably in both those games. And assuming they win those 2, and Texas and A&M both win, the winner of that game will play Alabama. Now, there is one scenario where Alabama does not get in if they do win out, and I'm going to list it here just because it's a weird scenario. If Texas wins out, obviously Texas would be in. Missouri has to lose out. They have to lose at Mississippi State, at Arkansas, and Tennessee has to beat Vandy the last game.
And that's for who to go?
That would make Georgia versus Texas as opposed to Texas or Texas A&M versus Alabama. Okay? Now, that's actually the simplest scenario, right? Like, that's the simplest scenario. Now, here's scenario number 2, and this is if crazy shit happens and all shit hits the fan, right? A&M loses to Auburn this week. Okay? Very possible.
Yeah.
Right? 2.5-point spread. Texas beats Kentucky. Next week, A&M upsets Texas. And then Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee all win out, which is very possible. None of them play each other. In that case, we would have a 6-way tie. Everybody's 6-2. And I believe I tried to look it through there. I couldn't find like exactly who would go, but my anticipation based on what I looked at shows that I believe in that scenario it would be Alabama versus Georgia for the SEC title game. Okay, so that's the scenario there. Question here, and we'll get into the game breakdowns here. Do you think this gets crazy? Do you think A&M is going to beat Texas the last game? You think A&M will win that game in Kyle?
I just think it'll be a
Station,
close game. I would give an edge to Texas just because they're a more talented team. But, I mean, it's a rivalry game. We know anything can happen. It's probably going to be at night at Kyle.
It is at night. It's 6:30 kickoff.
Okay, yeah.
They just announced it.
I figured, yeah. No, just an extremely tough game. We remember how the last one ended with a Justin Tucker walk-off at Kyle Field. So, I mean, they've been chomping at the bits to play that game again for how many years?
14, I'm guessing. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I think it was 09. Was it 09? I think it was,
That sounds
right.
about right.
I think it was 09.
Yeah.
It might have been 10.
Yeah.
It's been 14, 15 years.
Yeah. So
right?
they've been
It's a long
chomping at the bit to play that again.
The early point spread for Texas and Texas A&M.
By 4?
Texas by 7.5.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought it was going to be 8. Now look.
It's not. I don't think it's going to close that.
It probably will not close that.
No.
It probably will
If
not close that. I don't think
if A&M wins this week, I think it'll get. Would you say the opening line was?
The look ahead is 7.5. Now that doesn't mean I didn't reopen at a lower number, but the look ahead right now, currently you can bet at.
Well,
no, it's the same thing because you could go to FanDuel right now and bet A&M plus 7.5. So they're offering 7.5.
Interesting.
Now
I'd be shocked if both of them won this week. I would be surprised if it was more. I would just be. I think it's never going to be 7.5. Like game day kick, I think it could be 7.
I think 7 is where it will close.
6.5 to 7.
I think the hook will be gone. I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
and look, I'm not saying I would back Texas in that spot even at 7, but just from a pure standpoint of looking at the two teams on paper, if you take out the fact that it's a rivalry game, I think that number is 8. And I think the quarterback aside, if Texas has Arch Manning in the game and he's played all year, that line could be 9 or 10. Now. So you think Texas wins, but it's going to be a close game. So that's the scenario for the SEC. We'll move on now from the SEC. A lot of stuff could still happen. We'll have a better idea of what we are looking for next week based on the outcome here, right? If A&M and Texas both win, things get a lot simpler, especially if Missouri wins this week, which they should. We know, okay, Alabama just has to win and they're in, and then the winner of Texas and Texas A&M plays Alabama. That's going to be simple. Funny because I don't think Alabama or A&M are even top 3 teams in the SEC, and there's a chance they play for the SEC title. Decent shot.
Portnoy apparently, I just saw here, they put $100,000 on Bama to win it all.
Did he really?
Yeah,
there's no shot.
11-1.
There's a 0 shot. I won't say 0 because everybody's bad. Their defense is just so subpar. It would shock me. They haven't beaten anybody since they lost their 2 games. Who have they beaten?
I don't think they're going to win it.
But that said, I can't tell you who the favorite is right now. I don't
That's
know.
probably why he did it, just because it was 11-1.
I just
figures that the defense can play a little bit better, but who knows? I don't think they're going to
Milroe can't throw still. Anyway. All right. So that's the SEC race right there. We'll come back to that a little bit as we're talking through some of these games.